Get the panel started. So we're here tonight to talk about effectively managing growing companies, which is what all of us want to do, right? All of us want to manage growing companies, so it's a great topic. It's great turnout. Thank you everybody for being here. I see a lot of clients out there. I see a lot of our friends out there. I see the Stan Chamber is here. If you don't know the Stan Chamber, you should. Those are great guys. See, I saw Richard Phillips here. Crossroads Capital. If you don't know Richard, then you should. And I'm not going to try to name everyone. Don't worry. But part of the point is that half the reason for coming to things like this is to meet each other. And you're probably going to get more value out of that than anything we say up here, although we will try to add some value as we go along. So tonight, we're gonna, as I said, we're going to be talking about the different considerations for effective management of growing companies. We are live streaming this event, so if you ask questions or do anything, you just may have to do it on Facebook Live, just so you know. But we do encourage you to ask questions. This is meant to be an interactive event. It's something that you can get some real value. So we encourage you to ask questions. I probably should have said at the beginning, my name is Tom Craig. I'm the managing partner of FH+H, which is a law firm that you're sitting in. We're a law firm that specializes and focuses on supporting small and growing companies. Something that we do a lot of, and we're co-sponsored tonight by Newport Board Group. Our panelists tonight are Jack White, one of my partners here at FH+H. Jack counsels companies, boards, entrepreneurs, and other high net worth individuals on a wide array of business and corporate legal matters. He has particular experience with corporate structuring, corporate governance, business transactions, and compliance with federal and state regulations. He also has deep experience in constitutional laws on Supreme Court part, and he also is experienced in helping people navigate dispute resolution. Jack, glad to have Jack on the panel. Next to him is another partner of mine, Sherry Bennett. She's a partner here at FH+H. She has 20 years of experience as a legal counsel working with nearly all areas of business. She's been working throughout her career at the executive level, advising companies, working through corporate securities and investment management issues. She's also advised individuals about their investments in companies, board members on issues requiring independent counsel, and investment banks facilitate both raising money as well as buying and selling companies. And we're very happy to be joined tonight by Heather Newland at the far end there, who is here from Newport Board Group, where she advises CEOs, boards, and private equity sponsors on strategy and operational improvement. Newport Board Group is a national firm of CEOs, senior executives, and board directors who serve emerging growth and entrepreneurial middle market companies and their private equity investors. Heather has 25 years of experience using her engineering background to effectively serve as a business builder, product and program manager, and advisor for government customers and lower to mid-market companies. So in other words, if you are looking for outside advice on how to manage and run and grow your company, Newport Board Group is the people you should know. So without further ado, let's get into some of the panel questions. One of the main issues that we always see, and I'm sure you have all seen, in growing companies are human capital issues. And businesses really are made up of people. So let's start there. Jack, why don't you start us out with your thoughts on optimizing human capital?
On optimizing human capital for growth. Okay. I like that we are starting by talking about people. That we're starting the night about talking about growing a company by talking about people. Because I think that's the most important component of corporate growth, is focusing on the individuals. You might remember a few years ago in the election cycle in 2012, presidential candidate, and I am not talking politics, but a presidential candidate who did not win got in trouble for saying during a debate, corporations are people. And people thought that was just horrible because unemployment at the time was very high, and the context in which he was talking was about redistributing money and giving tax refunds. But when I call one of my clients, I don't call Acme Incorporated and say, may I speak with Acme Incorporated? I say, may I speak with John or Susan? The corporation is the people that comprise the corporation. So without the appropriate attention on the individuals in your organization, the company won't go anywhere. So what I'd like to do, and let me preface, each of us, we're going to share some thoughts, none of which is going to be comprehensive, but we are going to throw out some ideas for your consideration. And these are some components that I think are worth consideration for growing human capital. The first is a steadfast focus on leadership, and that leadership has to come from the top. You have to lead by example from the top, your ownership, president, CEO. One of the companies that I'm most fond of has a CEO who can do anything that any of his employees can do. It has been a fight to get him to back off and let his employees do their job, but he's a leader because he has done and they have seen him do everything that he requires of them. Second, human capital planning. What I mean by that is focusing on the number of people that you need, the functions, the roles, and what roles you want them in. So I don't mean just hiring for a position that you need right now. I mean planning long-term. Third, attracting, developing, and retaining employees. There's a company that, a few now that I've seen, that have a position that's just under the C-suite called Director of Talent. And the purpose of that is not just to look at the individuals that you need in positions right now, it's also to think ahead, how can Susan develop within this company over the next 5-10 years? Knowing what Susan wants to do professionally so she can do it here and grow up in this company. Fourth is a communication strategy. A lot of times the CEO and president and owners think that they know exactly where the company is going to go. It is very worthwhile to get buy-in from your employees. And every once in a while, they have a great idea that you had never thought about. And last is impact metrics. Some people call them key performance indicators. They're measurable, they're defined, they're consistent with the corporate mission, and everybody knows them. Let me be more specific on that. Everybody knows their own. I don't need to know what Joe's are, but I need to know what mine are, and there has to be constant communication. So those are 5 areas of focus on human capital growth that I think are focal, they're pivotal for corporate growth.
So thanks, Jack, and I certainly agree with that. I always tell clients that you can have the perfect org chart drawn, but if you don't have the right names that fill out those blanks, you're not going anywhere. But you do need an org chart, you need an organizational structure, and you need capital to fuel all that. So in addition to human capital, let's move on to Shri. Could you talk to us about other types of capital and how you address capital issues that you've seen in growing companies? And my notes say that I'm supposed to ask you to talk about third-party agreements and employee incentive plans. So that seems like a lot to talk about. You have 4 minutes.
After Jack, well, actually, so springboarding off of what Jack just talked about, and the importance of the people and getting the right people in place, and I'll add to that, keeping the people there. What companies often look to once they at a level, some of them start right off from the very beginning with employee stock plans and incentive plans, and this has become such a common thing that often employees, when they're thinking of joining a company, want to know about what the stock options are before they can get the first interview. So it's something that companies are thinking about. Increasingly, existing companies incentivize their employees to get enhanced qualifications. In this case, it's the top secret security clearance. And I've seen actually going through a few companies now that are working with this. And instead of having the stick of like, you know, it may or may not be a qualification they need to continue the position you're in, but it's something that's going to be in terms of growing the company that Jack was talking about. And instead of like, you know, having a stick of like, penalized for not getting it, but incentivize them to, you know, you want to participate and get a distribution of the profits and participate in the growth and success of the company, then, you know, get your top secret security clearance, that you can participate in this plan. And they've been good for this, one of the things that I just did a shareholder meeting, just the end of the year, very successful with this, and it's actually helped them really bring their numbers up in terms of getting, so, I think that's one of those, aspects that, like I said, it's also, when someone thinks of a securities lawyer, like one of our securities lawyers, especially some of these sort of private companies, and government companies, and my answer to that is every business, is when they give stock or anything that looks like it could possibly be stock, you need a securities lawyer, because the securities laws apply to all companies. Just had this conversation this morning with someone, because of the often misunderstanding that, you know, well, I'm not a public company, most companies don't go public anymore. It's not, you know, I think it used to be 20 years ago, or 15 years ago. They don't need to, you know, don't need to be thinking about these sorts of issues. But if I could do, and it's, and not just thinking about them in terms of make sure they're compliant with the law, but to see how they can use it in really creative ways to actually be able to advance the company's goals, and also to retain and attract really high quality individuals to the companies. Since small companies maybe don't have a lot of cash to go around, maybe don't have a lot of money to pay high salaries, but can give them something, some participation in the profits, and maybe it's not even right now, maybe it's in the future, they're going to pay out money for the company. Ultimately, maybe its strategy is to position themselves as a target for acquisition, and so that those employees can stick in for the long haul, you know, say 5 years down the road, when they get the company to a certain stage, they're an attractive target, they can cash out and participate. So there's some third party agreements. I guess maybe we can come back to that. I totally that's probably a good place to kind of segue. But
Sure.
You know, yeah, we'll revisit third party.
Sure. So Heather, we talked about getting people, getting your capital structure, getting employees incentivized. Can you talk a little bit about what you've seen on maturing operations? At the end of the day, companies are growing, right? On maturing operations in a growing environment, and how do you mature your operations, grow your company while still meeting your customers' needs?
And I think that's a really big deal. With businesses as they grow, a lot of times a founder's value proposition is that founder, right? You know, and so how does a business scale beyond the single founder? You know, I've talked a lot, you know, even with somebody today about, you know, well, my value proposition is me, and so you have to decide, are you looking for a business that's going to be that size value proposition, or how do you scale it, how do you make it repeatable? And then that all gets to be around how do you mature your business operations so that people are, you know, the classic phrase of working on the business rather than in the business, right? If your, you know, expertise is doing enterprise IT for State Department, you shouldn't be doing payroll, and you shouldn't be reviewing contracts, and you shouldn't be doing all these other things. So how do you figure out what is your true value proposition, what is you're delivering to your clients, your customers, and then how do you scale that in a really interesting way? And I think there's a lot of times where businesses just grow beyond their owner, and then how do you step back? And it's difficult because you at some point need to decide, am I going to be able to change the way I do things so that I can scale, or I'm not, and I'm going to stay smaller? Am I going to be willing to bring in outside people to help me do that? You know, I've got a friend that I was talking to, you know, founder of a company, got it to, you know, I don't know, 1,000 people or so, and was like, well, I now need to go become the chairperson of the board, and I'm going to bring in an external CEO to run the company. And I said, oh, that's going to be really hard. I said, it's, you know, it's the whole syndrome of like, you know, somebody else is taking care of my baby. And she's like, no, it's not my baby. She's like, I was here for 18 years. This is my college student. I fed them. I clothed them. I put them through school. And now some outside person is saying, those clothes aren't good enough, right? That process isn't adequate. Your And she's like, it was a lot of humble pie. Like, I am doing this to myself, but is it the best for the company? Even though it doesn't feel so comfortable for me, right? And so I think there's a lot of that about how you go through that and always you're making that assessment around what is best for the company and what is best for me and how do those intersect as a founder, and making a conscious decision, because maybe you don't want to have your business outgrow you. Maybe you want to say, you know what, I am really happy. I love that my director of finance is my, sorority sister, that the person running the HR department is a neighbor that I've known for 20 years, and I love this team, and I'm going to stay this size, right? Or no, I'm going to take it to be a $100 million or a $500 million company, and I'm going to need to ship people out. How do I have those hard conversations? I think along the same lines of the teenager, we had it's easy for me to come in as an advisor and say, you need to get rid of your CFO that's been here forever. And I was talking to one of my partners who said he was talking about this in a college class and was trying to explain how painful it is. And he's like, okay, so let's talk about we're graduating from college and you've had your best friend that's been your person for these 4 years. And now you're moving on to get a real job. So you say your best friend, great. It's been lovely knowing you. You've been really supportive all through college. I've outgrown you, so bye-bye. I'm going to go get a new best friend that knows things better in the next phase of my life, because now I'm, a single working person, right? And it just doesn't work that way, right? It's really easy for me to come in as an advisor and tell you that you need to do that, but there's so much emotion tied to that. And I think as a founder, a business owner is really getting in tune with what it is that you want to achieve and what are you willing to give for that, right? Because you may say, no, my college best friend is going to be with me for my whole thing because that is the most important thing. Or it may be, no, I want to build a legacy that is, a $500 million company, and that person was wonderful, but they don't quite have the right skills, and so how do I have that difficult conversation?
So if we could just stay on this for one more second, and I think this is really important. I think this is the number one problem I see with growing clients is, I call it the your brother-in-law can't be your CFO conversation. Snappy title, if you have a better idea, you'll see me after. But what do you do? I mean, do you have any quick free advice on how to, do you promote the guy to something else? You put him on the board? You have to
have an honest conversation, right? I mean, if your brother-in-law is not the right CFO, he knows it, and he's just sticking around, right? I've got a company that I work with, and it's the nephew of the founder, and he's like, I don't want to work here anymore, but I need to be loyal to my family. So his CEO doesn't want him to be there anymore, but he's to be loyal to his family. And so nobody wants to be there, but they don't want to make Thanksgiving difficult, right? So I think there's just an honest conversation around what it is that the company needs to happen. What are your skills? What are we looking for? And it's not like you come in and have that conversation and it's done, right? You're growing, so this should be an ongoing conversation. That if you're having an ongoing conversation over the year, 5 years, decade, you're having this conversation, you'll know that when you mutually reach that point and are ready to separate, right? Like, oh, he can be a great controller, or he can go great payroll, or he can go work for another company, right? But I think it's having an honest conversation around what is the company and what does he want to do.
So what about I know I'm making this kind of sketchy. What about the opposite thing? Because the other problem that I see is people, they know that, but they're afraid to bring in an outsider. And they're like, this person's going to learn my secrets, like they're going to know the thing we did 2 years ago, and and how can I trust them? I'm going to like an idiot because I'm going to get it from me. How do you get people comfortable with bringing in outsiders and giving them that kind of responsibility?
Well, so in the GovCon space, you see it all the time with CEOs that are there for a year, right? So, an owner hires a CEO external, and they think it's great, they've known them for 2 or 3 years, but it's a lot different. And so I think there's a lot of times in all of those roles where, one, you have to take the risk, and there's an opportunity cost, but the risk to not doing anything is higher, and so recognizing that there's a calculation there. Now, I'm an engineer, so I can do the math and the probability and work it out and figure it's all fine. But I think there's also, you know, just how do you phase people into some of these roles, right? You know, especially for that CEO role or part-time roles, how do you bring in part-time permanent that are able to migrate to full-time or other things? I think there's a lot of creative ways, especially in the gig economy that we have, where there's a lot of flexibility. And recognizing it's not permanent, right? You don't bring in a VP of business development that's going to be with you for 20 years. Maybe you bring them in for a year or 2 years, and they achieve some objective, and then you're ready for somebody different.
Can I interject?
You may.
Another way that I've seen this done a few times is by backing into and not going directly to the individual who's currently in that position, but going to the owner or CEO and saying, what is it that you want from this functional area? And having them list all of that out. In fact, we did that with the ILEX group who's in the room right now, and have them with the person, the brother-in-law, it wasn't brother-in-law, but with the person in that position, list out everything that it is that you want, and get them there, and then ask the pivotal question, which is, can this person in the position satisfy? And get them there. And by the time they think of what they want for their company to grow, they've already resolved what the decision has to be.
I guess investors decision. I mean, if it's not your idea coming from outside, it becomes something more organic and their idea, which is successful.
Great, so you guys can ask questions too. You might have to shout kind of loud, because it's been a long time in helicopters as a young man. But if you have questions, please speak up. But so should we? So we fired all our relatives. We've got people in place. We're growing, and but as we grow, we find that there's a million rules that we have to comply with. So can you talk a little bit about what maturing companies should be thinking about in the regulatory compliance arena as they grow their companies?
Well, I mean, so the problem with that is that they had those rules in place before they were big. So they were there from the very beginning. And I think that's one of the things that's important. Often companies, when they're starting out, they go on the company, and they don't really think that much about that document that they just adopted as the formative document, for their LLC, and they don't actually know what's in it, and basically do things however they think might work for them with that small group of people in the beginning, but as things grow, they start looking into the documentation to see what they should do, because how the problem may arise, and so the company, those things can happen. And that's where they find sort of that everything isn't quite the way it should be. The documents they have aren't that helpful. They don't necessarily know what to do about that. So some of them don't do anything, and so it really is a problem. So there should be a number of different, for as many companies as there are, there's many different issues. So one of the very big first things I do when I have a new client is having them send me all of their organizational stuff, all of the kind of basic agreements, whatever they have to lay of the land. And not only them to rack up my billables or anything like that, because I'll charge for any of that, or just a small amount, just kind of give a cursory overview of everything, just to see what they have, just to see, like, did you actually do this? Are you actually registered properly? Do you have like the most basic things? Because we had a client, actually happened in the last few months, we had a client that was in another state. It was registered as a Delaware company because they thought that's what you should do. They actually weren't in Delaware, they were in another state, and had never done the registration as a foreign business doing business in that state. So right from the very beginning, we were just about to, so before I can get you ready to be ready for investors and ready to go out to the market and ready to go out and do all these things, it's like, we need to make sure that you're legal, that you can, like, when we go out, and we get you in front of like a group of people that want to give you millions of dollars in. And in this particular case, they actually had people who were waiting for them to build something, and building will come, and they were there waiting, but the expectation was pretty high about what that thing was going to be. So it was like, if they'd gone in there and didn't have those ducks in a row, didn't have appropriate housekeeping, it's one of the things that gets thrown by the wayside, I think, just consistently with companies, no matter what the industry, no matter who the people are, no matter how sophisticated they are. When you're in the business of doing the business you do. You're not in the business of being a corporate lawyer or being these sorts of logistical types of things. You're not in the business of doing that, you comply with all the federal laws, let alone get into all the nitty-gritties and some state laws. And those are the things that catch people every time, and they're the things that can cause a lot of angst. I have a client right now who's in a lot. His company is doing amazing, but he has, because his board document hadn't been updated in 15 years, and basically never. So they formed it. The person who did it originally did a pretty good job, but the company was very different 15 years ago, and they never updated it, never changed it. So now they've got some issues that they really need to be able to resolve easily, and they can't because the documents aren't there to enable it to happen. So we're finding some creative workarounds to try to make that happen. It's going to be a process. It's going to be, multi-stage sort of process to do these sorts of things. So there is no really easy answer to this question. There's like no one size fits all because I don't know what's been done. I know if I formed it, I did. I know if me and my team did this. I know what we did the things we're supposed to do. But and it's not anyone's fault. It's sort of one of those things. Is like you use the time and the resources that you had at that time. Someone comes in with one of these. We often joke about Lucas being like our best referral source because people start there with that, and then they almost invariably isn't what they need, and they have to come and get it fixed, with us, and we just kind of take it from there. We're going to see where they are, make the assessment, set the priority list of like what are the most urgent things, the things that are really going to cause them a problem, because outside of this sort of securities realm, getting more to Jack's territory. Maybe they had just a handful of employees in the game. Maybe they were 1099s, but at some point, they ramped up considerably. There's a lot more employees in place. They convert people over to W-2s, and maybe they cross the threshold in one or more of their jurisdictions for withholding, and haven't been withholding. I had a triage situation with a client years ago who didn't even realize this was a thing because he really just wasn't that sophisticated about some of those sorts of business things, and he had the state of the airline really after him for years of withholding that he hadn't done, and convincing them that he had not done this in bad faith, was a challenge, So there were, all of those sorts of things for the producer and thinking about just, doing a check-in once in a while, just to make sure that, something as simple as your org chart, bankruptcy or org agreements or other types of agreements you have in place, just really making that team.
So how often do you think people should do that? Is that a yearly, 5 years?
And it depends. I would say it's not so much a yearly or 5 years, and I think it's more of like a milestone, because I have companies who are going, and I think, Richard Foster is going to be doing that here next week, for one from small to large, and that happens a lot. And sometimes you're in that initial phase, and this happens a lot because I really got my start with biotech. I was in the biotech section of the SEC, and they were like from 0 to like, to 90, like so fast, and it was, so they, and in those kinds of cases, when you think you're in an industry like that, what I usually start out doing is try to create documentation that's flexible. We try to create documentation documentation that is flexible enough that they can ramp up with you and grow with you. So it's got this sort of infrastructure in place that build that foundation so that you can build something, a skyscraper on it and not just a house. So I think those are the kinds of things that's really just about how fast you grow.
Yeah, and I think, in fact, we were just talking about this, a couple of people beforehand, before the panel. In a weird way, it's easier if you have explosive growth because then you have these milestones. In the GovCon arena, sometimes it's when you stop being small. It's a good time to get looked at. Anytime you change a category, but when you're not experiencing explosive growth and steady growth, then sometimes it's hard. It's like, well, we wake up one day and you got a $50 million company and you're like, well, I guess I have a business company now, and that might be time to go get that looked at.
I think in a case like that, just schedule it at periodic times that you check in, because in the meantime, there might have been regulatory changes, maybe working with a council on an ongoing basis. They should be alerted to it. I think the time like, hey, this new legislation just went through. We're in such an environment right now about happening. you know, something's changed and it's doesn't worry about something.
So talking about managing growth, Heather, you got to answer the fun questions about firing your family, so here's an even more difficult decision. We always hear people say that the best person to start a company is not necessarily the best person to grow that company, not necessarily the best person to run that company. So how do you deal with figuring out whether the company has outgrown the founder? And what do you do about that situation?
I think part of that has to do with, you know, again, to that value proposition, right? What is the value proposition and where does it go? And one of the things I talk with my clients about is if you think there's a problem, there's probably been a problem for 3 or 6 months. You know, we had somebody recently, they're like, oh, we got this employee, it's not working out, we probably need to let them go. And like, oh, we're gonna give them 3 more months, or 2 more weeks. And I was like, yeah, no, you are spending way too much time on this. And so I think as a founder, if the company's outgrown you, I mean, I think it's a lot about thinking through, am I still excited to come to work every day? Am I still wanting to do this, or is it such a burden? Or, you know, did I get into this business because I wanted to do, you know, I'm biotechnology and I'm spending all my time doing something that's not even related to that, right? And so what is it that you want to do? And I've seen some really interesting companies where founders have moved into new roles, and it, you know, a little bit humbling, but a founder that's a technologist moved into the CTO role so that they can really focus in on the technology aspect and let somebody else take over the business operations, right? And I think it's just around how you do that. And are you a startup person that's excited about all the innovation and the new stuff, or are you a scaling person that's excited around, you know, putting in processes and procedures? And a lot of entrepreneurs are not, right? And I really think, like, you know, we'll go back to thinking about Facebook, right? I mean, I think Facebook succeeded because Zuckerberg was willing to bring in Sheryl Sandberg to really put in those processes and procedures, and they make a really interesting dynamic duo right now. And we see maybe Facebook right now needing to bring in somebody that has to do with public policy and privacy issues, right? You know, that they're grown into this completely new domain that they didn't even know about, and recognizing that they're in perhaps over their heads on something that's really outside of their area of expertise. So how do they bring in somebody new? And I think that happens with all founders, is when the business is becoming overly complicated. And I'm actually reading this great business book by John Helen right now, where he talks about complexity versus sophistication. And one of the things he talks about in terms of businesses outrunning their CEO is a lot of times we talk about complexity, right? Like, okay, well, I can multiply one number, now I can multiply 2 numbers, and that's complexity. He's like, when your business gets bigger, it gets to be more sophisticated, right? And it's a completely different set of leadership skills, and how do you turn around that, right? And I think especially as you get to be a big company, your role is not so much about doing, it's around that vision and that purpose and being that leader. And it's interesting when you talk with founders, how some of them, you know, if they're more introverted, they're wanting to hide in their corner office, or they're getting back to what it is that they're really comfortable with. But is that what the business needs, right? And just like Jack said about what does the CFO need to do, or what does the CEO need to do? What are all these things? And can I write that down and honestly assess myself as saying, yeah, those are things I love to do, right? I love to walk the halls and inspire people with the story, or do I really want to like work on mechanical drawings or, you know, biochemistry? Well, maybe it's not the right role. And so I think there's some of that too around, you know, has the jobs, you know, moved to a more sophisticated space where I don't want to grow and develop myself, because as your business is growing, you know, CEOs as leaders have to also be growing and continuing to develop along with their business at the same pace, and that's a challenge, right?
It's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard, and so we know that the founder is critical to that, the CEO is critical to that. But if there's one thing that's been obvious from this conversation, you can do it for themselves. So Jack, can you talk to us a little bit about organizing and developing a C-suite for a company, and in particular, you know, I think of these corporate structures as something that's static. It's a line of block check on the paper, but these companies are dynamic and they're changing. So how do you build and organize a C-suite to deal with that dynamic business management?
That's a good point. Dynamic is the exact word to describe a growing company. By way of vignette, about 5 years ago, I got a client, and as I got this client, the client had 13 PEOs against me. The client at the time was about
15 employees?
the client was about 12 million in revenue at the time. And one of the frustrating components of handling all of those complaints is before the EEOC, I would always have to submit an organizational chart. But for the 13 complaints, I had 13 different organizational charts, which frustrated me because I had to figure out, when did the event occur, and when was the employee hired, what position were they hired into, what was the organizational chart at that time, and it was complicated and frustrating. But you know what? That was exactly the right answer for them to know that their growth was dynamic and their organizational chart needed to change with the needs of the company. I think in order to grow organizationally, leaders have to be students of organizational structure and organizational dynamics. There was a time when corporate structures required managers. The manager of this sector, like for a law firm, it was the manager of employment, the manager of corporate matters, the manager of litigation. And that was the structure with a bunch of managers. What's happened over time is you have what's called functional centralization. And so you have a chief marketing officer because marketing is a centralized function. You have a chief financial officer. You have a chief strategic officer. And you have to think when, it's like double Dutch jump rope, where the ropes are going both ways, and you have to think when to jump in.
Did you have on
So-
that last one?
That was what we did between drill and service. But thinking about when to jump in is very significant. A good example is this. I had a company that I believed, to my managing partner's chagrin, that they were at a point where they needed to stop outsourcing general counsel because I saw how much they were spending on me. And with paying an inside general counsel plus the wrap plus the bonus, it would have been a third of what they were paying our firm person. So I told them, go ahead and hire a general counsel. But here's what I found. How do I describe this? Okay, so if I go to the gym in the mornings, when I come home, I might not smell that great, right? And I have a little girl, she's 12, and I'll give her a hug, and she's close to me. And she'll say, I love you, Daddy, but you stink, right? When you have a general counsel, you have to let them hug you close enough so that they can tell you that you stink. And this company wasn't ready, organizationally, to have an inside general counsel say, hey, CEO, you're doing this wrong. COO, you're doing this wrong. Vice President of Human Resources, you're doing this wrong. They weren't ready. Financially, they could afford it, but they weren't ready. And that is a part of organizational dynamics, because you have to understand the functional centralization that you need to accomplish, but you also have to appreciate when you're ready to bring that person in. So another example, and then I'll shut up for just a second. Another example is, when do you switch from having a controller or a director of finance to having a CFO who actually thinks of the vision financially and revenue-wise for the company over time? That's dynamic, because there are a lot of different moving parts. Do you take the individual who's in that position and grow them up over time? Or do you take that individual, let them go till they hit capacity, and then bring in somebody with greater skill set? Last thing, I said I'd shut up, I like it. Last thing is, in terms of this, C-suite organization, you also have to think, about when and whether you want a board. And I'm not talking about a fiduciary board yet, that's a totally different panel. But when and whether you want an advisory board, and they can be extremely advantageous if you structure them correctly, and if you actually listen. That's it. I'll shut up.
So,
So you started off talking about people and building your structure and scalability. You did the same thing talking about the legal documents and the growth. How often are you recommending smaller clients or mid-level clients to outsource some of these things? You mentioned outsource counsel, an outsource CIO, sitting next to an outsource CMO. I see in this environment, there's really opportunities for outsourcing CFO, so that a small company, even if they're just in their first 3 to 5 years, can build a fully scalable infrastructure and outsource as they need it. Are you encouraging that, or how is that?
let me take that real quick, because I swear we didn't plan this, but that actually segues into our next topic, which is, so your question basically, so they probably can't hear you on the Facebook thing, is, like when and how do you decide whether you outsource some of the C-suite help or other executive experience help, right? And Heather, that is a lot, I know, what you guys do down in Newport Board Group, and just coincidentally, it's the next thing on my little checklist here. When you're building this in-house team, when and how do you decide whether one of the pieces of that might be outside help, part-time help, that sort of thing?
Well, and I love the way Jack talked about dynamic, because I think the answer is very dynamic, and it changes, and it needs to be assessed all the time, back to your gut, right? If your gut says it's not working, then you need to reassess it. I think the wonderful thing around our gig economy now is there's a lot of options for that, right? There's a lot of outsourcing things. One of the things we talk about at Newport is for founders and CEOs to really focus in on what is their core and to outsource as much of that that they can do otherwise. And outsource in a lot of different ways, right? It may be an accounting firm that takes over payroll and invoicing and taxes. It may be legal services where you get a large firm that can have all these different specialties around it. But there's also a lot of variety of people looking for flexible work arrangements, right? I mean, there are parents that have advanced degrees and 10, 15 years experience that now want school hours, right? And so they're looking for 10 or 20 hours a week versus a full-time stressful job. And they maybe they are CFOs, or maybe they're people that had great, 20, 30-year careers and are easing into retirement, and so they're looking for more flexible arrangements. So I think there's a lot of alternatives around, outsourcing to, big firms that can provide end-to-end capabilities. There's ways to look at people that have great expertise that, you don't want to bring them on full-time, but they also don't want to work full-time. And so I think it's really figuring that out. And it's also around how do you outsource it, and then when do you bring it back and source it? And I think that concept around, are they ready for the insourcing is a really big deal too, right? Because I think that's one of the things when we talk about our role at Newport is sometimes we come in and serve as interim CEOs or C-suites. And I think it's really great to learn on me because I'm an outside person, I'm a consultant per se, and I can tell you that this is not working, and you can yell and scream at me and I go home and I'm not worried about my job. Versus, you can't have as much transparent debate sometimes when somebody is an official org structure and there's a hierarchy to it too. And so I think that is around how much debate do you want within your team, and if you're not quite ready for that level of kind of conflict and discussion inside, that may be a great way to bring in somebody from outside that can be a little more honest with you. And so I think there's a lot of different opportunities, and I think the biggest thing is to just think about like if it's not working, right? And the same thing on your outside, right? Your outside legal or accounting, and at what point do you get big enough that you're like, I'm ready to bring this part in or this part in, right? And it's benefits, it's HR, it's talent, you know, especially like talent acquisition and government contract, right? If you're gonna win a big contract and you're gonna double in size, how are you gonna hire all those people in? Well, can you know, what is core to your brand, right? Maybe onboarding is really core to your brand, but phone screens are not core to you, so you outsource that part. Or maybe it's really important to get the job descriptions written just right so that you know it's really consistent across your organization and you talk about your values in your job descriptions, but you know, maybe sourcing candidates is not. And so how do you take really big, complicated things and break it down in a way that allows you to focus on where your discriminator is and where you're gonna build your company and your culture, and where do you outsource the things that are more humane and that allows somebody that's got a more repeatable process to go do that part of it.
I think that works for the substantive areas and also just for like admin functions that really have nothing to do with the business of what it is they do, other than that it's the business, you know, like, and those aspects I think are really right for outsourcing. I make recommendations like that a lot, especially in companies that are in the small mid-market, sort of like in this startup to mid-market, because they just don't have usually resources available to like fulfill all these different capacities. And to the extent that they can, they need to be focusing on what you just said. So like to the extent there's anything else that's outside of that, it just doesn't make sense for them to be trying to do it, because almost any kind of provider in that space is going to be able to do it more efficiently than they can at a lower cost.
It recommends that it's dynamic, right? I mean, I think, you know, Jack hit on board members, right? I mean, a lot of times companies get boards and people are on boards for like 15 years, right? Well, in your startup, you should probably have a board seat for a year or two and reassess the company. And it may be the same thing for what are you doing, right? What do I need for accounting? What do I need for legal? What do I need for HR? Is it working? How do I change, right? It needs to be dynamic and always think about, is it working, is it not, how can we improve it?
And just to add sort of one more thing is that so many companies don't even realize that these are options. Like, so I think that's one of the things that's been education even for me, because I was started up in Ivory Tower at ACC with the big wall and those kinds of things. When I actually got down, you know, the ground to my own boutique practice and then looking at smaller practices, realized that there was like this whole world out there of service providers that can help companies in so many different ways that I didn't even know existed. And I wish that I had known early on because I could have really helped out some of my smaller clients with being able to fill this capacity, because what was happening was they couldn't afford it. They just didn't do it. It wasn't like they could do it more efficiently. They just weren't doing it inside. So it was like they were just haphazardly doing it because it was all they could possibly have in terms of advantage that they had left over after they were, you know, performing all the substantive work.
So we're a little behind schedule, so I'm gonna skip to the last question, which I think is the usually. Since we've got this company, we're going, we fired all the right people, we have a founder in his box where he belongs. We're following most of the rules, the important ones anyway. But as we grow, one of the things I think it's easy to forget about is protecting what we're growing, protecting our products, protecting ourselves, protecting our identity. What should growing companies be thinking about in that realm?
I think that's really important one, because as much as people are not focusing on sort of the corporate aspects or whether this is a securities transaction or not, even define exemption or whatever, they're often either not aware of or think they already have given protection to things like their trademark. Like every single company has a trademark, or something that's trademarkable generally, in terms of the company's name and whatever sort of logos they have. Invariably, I have companies coming to me, they tell me, oh, I already registered this, it's fine, I don't worry about it. And it's like, well, yes, but, you know, let's see what you got. And that's really one of those times when I do sort of issue spotting in terms of like, what sort of proprietary information do they have, what sort of materials do they have, this is again sort of like I'm doing a corporate assessment, I'm also doing an assessment, which is like, what is the company doing, what are they doing with, and what kinds of protections, what needs to protect it. So I do sort of the overall issue spotting. When I get to a point where I feel like there are things there, which there always are, it's like when I hand off to my colleague, and I say, I've gone past my capacity for this, you know, because I don't know the nitty-gritty of that. actually, Melissa just reminded me, just talking to a client, about this, is that, you might have a trademark, it might even be protected, but you're thinking of enforcing that. You can't just like let your trademark just hang out there and let people just infringe on it, just left and right, and never go after them. So it's one of those things where, it's important to be vigilant about that and making sure you continue to protect, these sorts of things and go after infringers. And then, going on the other side, if you were received a cease and desist letter about your trademark, which is really bad because that means that you thought you had protection for something and then somebody else actually had, maybe better protection than you have. And this happens often when folks will like register the domain and think that that's it. They don't have to do anything else. And they think that I got the domain. That's right. It's like, again, you built the whole company around this brand and this idea and this name. And it's like, oh, guess what? It's actually already been taken because you didn't actually search this whole database. Because even if you did register this one part of it, it's not really what it means. And I'm speaking of this, I can't articulate this very well because this gets like totally into sort of nitty-gritty but substantive areas that are outside of mine. So I have, if you have something you can probably articulate that a lot better than I could. Melissa. Not to single you out. We work so closely together because, like I said, almost every company that comes across my desk has an issue, at least in the trademark area, if not also patent and copyright and trade secrets, and they've got some kind of proprietary information, then they may or may not actually put into an NDA and actually have some type of protection in terms of the employees and the other relationships with their vendors and suppliers. They're built into those agreements, protecting the third-party agreements, but they haven't really taken that extra measure of protecting what they have, or even realizing what it is that they have to protect. Because often all clients will say, well, I've already registered my trademark, and I'm not a technology company, so I don't have any IP issues. I don't have anything to worry about. It's like, well, okay, maybe that's true, but probably not. You probably have actually a lot of things you can protect, and in your websites, you've got content. Maybe there's all sorts of things that could be copyrightable or could be protected in some other way. Did I say that right? Is that
I think whenever you have a small and middle market company, probably everybody in here has some form of IP, right? You have brands, you have content, you have intangible proprietary stuff. And it's good to parse out what that is, but when you're a growing company, that changes, your priorities and your cost benefit change very rapidly. So I think it's often an assessment of what is worth protecting and what's worth protecting at this stage, because not all IP is created equal. And a lot of times we have this scale of people who don't address it at all, and then saying, I'm not a big company, I don't need to, and others who are sort of posited to have consultants or overeager lawyers who say, it falls in this category, you gotta spend all this money protecting it, when it might not be that valuable. So I think the most beneficial thing you can do with IP in the broad stroke is surround yourself with people who are inspired by what you do, so they see where your company's going, but not a lot of yes people, so that somebody's really going to give you the nitty-gritty of the value of what you have and wants more of your resources and focus for IP, because it can be very beneficial in some cases, and it can be a lot of points in others. And really knowing where to focus your resources with that to maximize what you do have.
Yeah, and I would just add that a lot of my GovCon clients, some of you that at least know some of a lot of GovCon clients, they think that I'm a GovCon, I don't have trademark issues. But you do. And so I would encourage you, if you contract with the government, as Melissa said, not all IP is created equal. I'm not saying you guys spend a lot of money protecting it. Read the FAR provision, IP provision that applies to you. Just read it. There aren't that complicated. It's like 3 paragraphs. It's not that complicated. Read it twice. Ask your brother-in-law to read it. And just make sure you understand what you're giving the government. You are selling the government your intellectual property. And make sure you understand what am I giving the government. Just read, please, I beg of you, read the FAR IP provision that applies to your contract if you haven't done so.
And then if somebody comes along and tells you you have the most magical patents and copyrights that they've never seen before, and for X amount of dollars, they're going to help you maximize it, you have a second opinion.
Yes.
Because there could be something valuable and you wanna put your resources and time and attention where it is your job.
Okay, we try to take just at least a few minutes for questions, if there are any questions. I know we've covered it so well, we don't have any questions. If you have any questions out there, for the system?
Was there anything that we didn't talk about?
What?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Coming back to this question of outsourcing, obviously your outsourcing needs change depending on the size of the company. So if you can perhaps pick a scenario like, let's say a $15 million company in the government space that's doing something around IT or cybersecurity, what would you say the top 5 things that you see commonly outsourced for those sorts of businesses?
Just to repeat the question is that what are some examples of maybe the top 5 things that maybe $15 million tech companies would outsource?
Legal, back office, HR. We have a company here now that does it. Stephanie Alexander, who's IT, accounting, and separate from accounting, tax.
So Heather, what about outsourced executives? Everybody knows about outsourced CFOs, it's been a thing for a long time. And people bring in the CFO to manage a merger, or handle an audit, or because you fired your brother-in-law, or whatever. But what else? What other executives do you think outsource can you see?
Well, I mean, I think you can outsource anything. And I think in terms of the C-suite, there are some interesting points to do that, right? So if you're positioning your company to be sold in a couple of years, you might want to bring on executive to help you prepare for that. But outsource it as a consultant or advisor or something, so that it's not somebody that's gonna have to get, maybe fired when they go with the new company. And so thinking about what is that role and what is the person trying to do. Newport does a lot of CEO outsourcing, where I recommend, for a founder to test out on a consultant before they hire. So, hiring a CEO, a president, a COO, that's a really hard job. And it's not just around personality and are you gonna really make this person competent, but am I gonna be willing to let go? And so one of the things when an owner says, I'm exhausted, I'm tired, I need to move to the chair role of the board, I recommend them getting an interim person that's, 3 to 6 months to say, okay, well, when that person comes in and says they wanna change the logo, how are you gonna handle it, right? When this person comes in and says, I'm gonna change the meeting tempo, when this person says you're gonna do this, right? Test that and learn for the CEO or whatever that role is to experiment with what does that mean for them personally and how do they get real comfortable with that? And then write the job description, because they'll have a much clearer understanding about what it is they're gonna let go and what it is that they're comfortable with. And they've trained on somebody in a consultant fashion, which, Jack talked about, when you're an outsider, you can have that conversation and it's an expected conversation that's difficult and all your employees are watching it happen. And so it's not good to have it for somebody that's going to be a permanent employee, right? Do that on a consultant where nobody is like watching to see if they're walked out the door today, right? And so, there's a lot of training that can happen at the C-suite level before you hire a permanent C-suite. And even if you're in a huge growth mode, the CFO you need today may not be who you need in 2 years, right? And so better to hire somebody with those exact skills and then bring in somebody else when you're at another level of company, right?
I think there's another question, Jim, question?
There was a question that I didn't hear as far as with man-hours. How do you retain people? Especially in the IT environment where they're looking at salary, income, and other benefits that are tied into that are outside of corporate stock or other ways to bring in golden parachutes to keep people in place for X period of time.
And so the question just to make sure everyone knows, how do you retain people and what are some of the structures, whether the employment contracts or the capital structure or whatever, how do you keep people motivated and
keep from jumping ship.
I mean, the stock is definitely one of them. I mean, you were saying outside of stock?
Outside of stock.
Outside of stock. I mean, I think that's when it's about engaging them in strategic business planning. Because if it's someone who's really vital to your operation and you can give them an idea of like what the end game is of the company, that say the goal is to grow it to a certain level and to meet an acquisition target, and that you can give them the idea there's going to be a big payoff at the end. And maybe the big payoff is that they transition over to a much bigger company, you know, or maybe it's cashing out the stock that they want to have, or whatever it is, but it's engaging them in that process and getting them involved in it. I mean, one of the tech companies that I work with right now that actually is in the government space, they have these, you know, meetings with all of the, basically every single person is in the company is in the same room, and they talk through these sorts of things and we engage like everyone. And so even the people who don't necessarily have stock in the company are still part of the process, and they really feel like they're an important part of things, and they have a voice, and they can give feedback directly to management. You know, and you know, those are the not quantifiable things. Those are the kinds of things it's about. It kind of gets into quality of life, I guess, and it also just kind of gets into like they're showing them the importance of the active outreach.
So on retention, you know, a lot of what we've talked about today has been a lot of art and science and a mix. But retention, there is science to it. There's research on retention. And some of the components, especially with millennials, because there is science to this. CSR is extreme. Compensation is not even on the list of the top 10 factors in retention. It's not even on the top 10. It's about CSR. It's about corporate culture. It's about communication, feedback on goals. On the front side, the establishment of goals, and giving feedback on the back end. But we should talk about that because there are some specific things that you have to do to retain employees.
Yeah, no, I think it's very true, and I can tell you that, you know, when my wife and I were raising our kids, we thought it was important, like everyone says, to teach your kids the value of money, like hearing about satisfaction, improving the world, and being a good person, and unfortunately they believed all that. And now I can't get either one of them to take a job that makes decent money because they care about all those other things. And so, but seriously, it is, I think, sometimes one of the harder things is you can give them stock options, you can give, you know, retaining our payments, where you're still with me, in December 2020, you're gonna get X dollars. That stuff only works so bad. And what it's really about ownership. And what I would suggest is that if, you know, you're entrepreneurs, think about why did you want to do this, right? And what was, well, because it's my company. We have to make them feel like it's their company too. And that's hard because it means you have to let them make decisions. It means you have to let them be involved in it. It means you have to, they're not gonna care about the company unless you let them care about the company. And I see CEOs often complain that their employees aren't as dedicated as they are, but then when you dig into it, they're not letting those employees be in charge of it. So, and that is one of the hardest parts of leadership. You know, it can be difficult. There's a lot of, that's a whole evening's conversation probably, but that's what I would say, is let them be part of your company. Any other questions?
So I had a loaded question for Heather-ish, because I think that this is a question that most people in the under 50 million want to know. How do you vet and or hire and outsource business development? Right? I know, that was hard. Give us the secret sauce of it.
Okay, let me just repeat the question. The question was, how do we vet and hire an outside business development person? And I know this is something that a lot of my clients have done, and
Thank
a
you.
lot of them have not been.
$5,000 retainer every month, and it never goes anywhere, and then you're fired after 6 months, blah, blah, blah. How do you
Yes, that has been a common experience. So
Thank
how do
you.
you fix that? Fix that for us.
fix it, Heather? Make it better.
So
that is a hard one. Well, and I think hiring a business development person is harder than the CEO or the COO.
That's
And it
why
is
I'm asking the hard
because-
questions, like,
Yeah,
because I wanna know what you think.
Yeah, you know, that is one actually that I don't have a very good answer for that one. Because I think the thing is, it's such a long sales cycle that people just give them the benefit of the doubt, oh, 12 more months, 18 months. But I think what I recommend to my clients though is to fail fast, right? Hire somebody when they're reporting out on the capture and they're talking all gibbery juice and it doesn't sound right, they are giving you gibbery juice, right? And get rid of them, right? And when their pipeline looks really soft and doesn't look like it's going anywhere, you know, right? And I think people are so worried about the business development that they give people way more runway than they should. So that's not how you hire the right person, that's how you get rid of the wrong person, right? And I think a lot of times we would do better by getting rid of the wrong person a lot faster, and be willing to experiment a little bit there, right? I also think where I see in business development people are doing too much is that they want to hire somebody that is an account manager, and a capture manager, and a proposal writer, and a negotiator, and you're like, those are all very different roles. And that's where I recommend outsourcing, right? You know, like, okay, maybe you hire somebody that does all your recompetes, your task work, like you do it all, and you've got a strategic thing, you need to hire somebody that's an account manager and really knows that customer. You need to hire somebody that's a capture manager that's gonna track it for a couple of years. But you don't maybe need somebody full-time, you maybe need somebody that's, 25% or 50% on a thing that's just gonna track it. And then you need somebody that really does proposals and bring that person in. And maybe you need not just the proposal writer, but you need the proposal manager, and you need a tech writer, and you need a past performance writer. And how do you segment that all out to get the exact skills that you need? So I think, again, part of it is that outsourcing, right? So you get the right skills along the line.
Well, I would suggest, that maybe the answer is that you don't.
That's what I was.
Right? And the reason, you get to a point where you have to because you're too big, right? But most entrepreneurs, what they're really good at is business development. That's how you start your companies. And sometimes what you need to do is, maybe what you need to do is outsource the president function, or outsource the CEO function, or something like that, and keep beating for yourself. I do agree you have to fail fast.
Right.
And the one thing I also just, if you're working in the government, and all that be wary of hiring the guy that used to work at the place where you want to do business. I mean, I've seen people have great success with that, all right? But there's a reason he used to work, right? So make sure you know what you're buying. That you're not buying a guy that is one of his welcome in that office, and that's why he's looking for a job. But yeah, I would say it's hard. Fail fast is really good advice. But also consider that maybe you're the best BD guy for your company right now. If you're a small or mid, you get bigger than mid, it's hard. You're gonna need to. You can find proposal writers and stuff like that. They're out there, the good ones. We know some good ones. But the real BD guy, you go out there and develop and capture. That's tough, and maybe you need to do it yourself as well. That's fine.
In account management is different than capture management, right? And I think that's the thing is there's a lot of phases to that, and you just can't match them all together, right? It's very different skills.
What else? That was very good question.
Yeah.
Okay, why don't we call that a day? And
I just want to
sure you want.
I want to thank Melissa for.
Thank you, Melissa, for being
For
with us.
completely with it.
Answering difficult questions.
Just like, are you talking about what's happening? So, thanks for being good sport.
We
And giving me an assist.
We keep that around a little bit. We have some, I think there's still some people up there probably. If you haven't met that guy over here, I think that would be worth your time. If you have any questions for the panel or me or anyone else, will be around for a while.